Welcome guys, this is going to be a strategy guide, mainly for new players who are playing the game for the first time. And I'm going to do a slightly different format to how I normally do my tutorial guides. I'm going to actually walk through the entire campaign, or maybe not the entire campaign, but at least the beginning, and go through each individual thing. So I won't be doing any battles. This will be completely a strategy guide, not a tactical guide. So it'll be all based around the campaign map and not the battle maps. So yeah, first off, you're going to obviously start a new campaign and you choose one of your armies. So you'll only have the starting armies at first, this first one, not the second two. And then you can unlock the other two which give different armies. I'm just going to play with France for a minute because I've only got 3 units with these and I just want to demonstrate how to start off if you only have 3 units. And down here we've got the campaign settings. Now normally the campaign settings would be like this and it'd have no modifiers. Now what I recommend for your first attempt is to put the difficulty on Lieutenant and to actually have the modifiers on, because this game is quite difficult, so I don't recommend going into it first time with no modifiers. So go in on Lieutenant difficulty, and then as you start improving, then you can up the difficulty as and when you please. Obviously here we have an explanation of what France plays like, and then on this side it'll tell you what each of these armies play like. So this one is melee damage increased. This one is campaign movement speed and visibility is increased, but the army replenishment is decreased. So these just change how you approach the campaign, but we won't worry too much about this. We're just going to be discussing the basics. So first of all, you're going to get a choice of which missions you want. And these are fairly important, but not the end of the world. You know, like you can't really choose a wrong one, but there are ones that are slightly better than others. But for now, we're not going to focus on what's best and what isn't. We're just focusing on the core mechanics. So you can have a little look to see what you think might be most beneficial to you, and you just choose accordingly which ones you think that you're going to make the most out of. Line infantry and artillery are not bad choices. I wouldn't really recommend cavalry on your first attempt because they're quite challenging to use, and light infantry are a little bit challenging at first until you start to understand how they actually work. So we're just going to go for this one, which is just less ammo consumption and some line infantry. So this is the first screen that you're going to encounter, and I'll just quickly walk through what everything is. So this will take you to the main campaign map. So will this up here. You've got money, food, reservist, which is how you fill up your units, and ammo. So they're pretty self-explanatory. This button here will open up 4 new slots for you to put men in, but it doesn't actually give you any regiments. All it does is open up available slots. So you don't need to do this until you've filled out all 4 of these. And then you can obviously put these items onto your units. So you can right click to put them on immediately and right click to take them off, which is a little bit quicker than click and dragging. So you can obviously experiment with different stuff, but the light infantry that I've actually got here, they're going to be the first people to get shot at, so we may as well put fire reduced damage. There's no point in putting cover on these light infantry because you don't really want them absorbing any cavalry charges, so put these cover and charge resistance things on your line infantry, not on your light infantry. Move speed is good with the light infantry, but you'll basically find out what you think is best with the items. This isn't drastically important. So you can see this here. This is how you upgrade your units. You can just have a quick look through at the stats and just compare them, and you'll have a good idea just from comparing two different units what they do. And then if you just hover over it, it tells you what each of these things does. This is the disband button, but I highly recommend not pressing this button ever, unless you really need to. But yeah, you'll never want to press this button here. You can customize your units down here. So that's pretty much it for this screen. Up here you can put units into reserve. Say if a unit's got hardly any manpower and you don't want to risk losing them in a battle, you can just take them out to make sure they're safe. And you can switch officers around as well up here. So this is just a little bit of fluff to begin with, telling you what's happening. So the first thing you're going to do is grab the supply cache and you'll get a fight. I recommend taking the cache, the Thalas, but you don't have to. You can choose one of the others if you want, but the Thalas are nearly always the best thing to take. So you face a weak enemy detachment. Now you're going to want to try and fight as much as possible, because by fighting you earn money, and by earning money you can unlock new regiments and brigades and fill regiments. So yeah, you basically want to fight as much as you can, but obviously you need to make sure that you're not taking too much losses. So you want to try and build up as big an army as possible, so you're outnumbering the enemy when you're taking these battles. You don't really want to take a battle where you're weaker, because you'll take too many losses and it won't be financially a good choice, basically. So like I say, I'm not going to show any battles during this. I can potentially do a different video focusing on the tactical side of the game, but for now we're just going to focus on the strategic side of the game. Okay, so after your first battle, you're going to get some loot, and you're going to get these choices. So you can either get men, veterancy with provisions, or ammunition and money. I highly recommend getting the ammunition and money. And then we can put these things that we've just earned from the battle onto our men. Now down here you can open up more slots to put more items in, but I don't recommend doing this until you've built up a sizable army. You can quickly fill up your manpower and ammo by clicking them two buttons there. Okay, so this is where the decisions start to take place, and this is where I see most people struggle who very first start the game. So one thing that I'll note is you can run faster by pressing forced march, but it uses more food, or you can see further and eat less food by using the forage. So I recommend using the forage virtually at all times, apart from if you've got an enemy trying to fight you and you want to run away from them, and that's when I recommend using forced march. So click on forage. It will automatically unpause the game when you do this, so make sure you pause the game as soon as you click forage so you're not wasting time. And then the first thing you're going to want to do is visit a town, But if there's any encounters along the way, you might want to quickly visit the encounters along the way. So let's quickly visit this encounter. Hopefully it doesn't ask us to do a battle, which it didn't. You can do a battle here, or you can delay the HQ. Now delaying the HQ is great, but not entirely necessary, and fighting battles is really good, because this is how you're going to earn your most money. So normally I'd say fight the battles, but only once you've recruited more men. So we wouldn't want to fight an army at the beginning until we've recruited more men. So we're going to delay the HQ instead. And then you want to visit your first settlement, and in 90% of settlements you'll get a barracks. If you're incredibly unlucky, you won't get a barracks, and that is very, very unfortunate, and I'm hoping that the devs will change this so every settlement has a barracks, because the barracks is where you recruit more men, and that is the most important part of the game, or at least most important part of the early game anyway. So what you're going to want really is to have as many cheap units as possible. So we need to buy one, and I recommend getting the cheap ones. Then we need to buy this to be able to buy more, and then we want to buy more as well. So this one's 350. We haven't got enough money for that, so we're going to want to sell some of our items. Now this is one thing that I see not many people doing, is they try to hoard the items, and at the beginning of the game particularly, you want to have as many troops as possible. So really you want to sell as much stuff as possible, just so you can build as big an army as possible, and then you start to snowball. And it's the snowballing which will make the game so much easier, because you can basically take on fights that you wouldn't normally take on, which gives you better rewards, which means you can recruit more men, which means you can take on more fights. And so building up an army at the beginning is a surefire way of snowballing and making the game so much easier. Now I wouldn't spend 700 thalers at the beginning on a regiment. We want to buy only recruits, because we just want as many men as possible on the field. So up here you can see the different things that are affecting this particular settlement. You can also see this over the settlement's name. So you might want to take advantage of these things as and when, but obviously that's up to you when and where you think that this is the best idea to take advantage of. I'm not going to give too much information on this type of thing, because that's a little bit more advanced, but we're just going to stick to the very basics in this video. So we've now got 5 regiments, so that's a lot better than 3. So the first patrol that you encounter has usually got 5 regiments. So we've now matched their regiment count. Now, if you're unlucky and you don't get a barracks in the first settlement, then you need to try and find a settlement that does have a barracks without having to fight the first patrol, which is why I think this design needs changing. So hopefully it will change in the future. But for now, we're just going to go along and do as many encounters as possible. The encounters are basically how you start to really snowball, because you can get free stuff from them, and you can also get small battles from them, which will increase your army size. So here's the first patrol. You can see if it's a patrol by hovering over these little pips underneath, and 1 pip is patrol, 2 pips is a type of unit that chases you, 3 pips is a encamped unit, which is optional and you get high rewards if you complete it, and then 4 pips is the HQ, which is the boss basically. So you can quickly move to locations by clicking this flag. So defeat enemy headquarters, click the flag. If you want to see where the enemy, where your objectives are, sorry, so you can have a look to see where they are. You can scroll through them by clicking the flag, or you can zoom out and hover over them and they'll all highlight. And then if you click your face, then you can quickly move back to you. Your face, your portrait, I should say. So yeah, now that we've got 5 regiments, we can face this first patrol. If we didn't, we wouldn't want to face him. So what we would do is we would hang around just outside of his range. You can do some drilling to increase your veterancy while you're waiting. So oh, he's actually spotted me. That's surprising. I'm obviously a little bit too close. I'm quite surprised. I thought that would be fine there. So basically, if they see you, then this icon turns to swords and it means they're pursuing you. You're going to want to click on forced march and then you're going to want to run away from them. So you're going to do a little merry dance around them and then sneak into a town. Now they do pathfind along the roads, so you've got to make sure that when you click you're not pathfinding towards them by taking the faster route, which is a longer road. Okay, now we've made it into the city. If we hadn't have been able to buy anybody in this first settlement, then you would have had to do this little ring around the rosy to enter your first settlement, or your first settlement that's got a barrack, sorry. If you manage to find 2 settlements in a row without a barracks, then you've just been insanely unlucky. So I highly doubt that's going to happen. But if it did, you're just going to have to do the same. Run away with forced march to the next one and try and sneak in and buy as many cheap units as possible. So we're going to have a look in. We've got some more 350 cost units in here. Or at least we've got one of them anyway. So we haven't got much to sell now. These 2 items, it's actually good to keep these 2, or one of these 2, in your inventory at all times because there's events that use these. So keeping them handy is a good way to get free units. But at the very beginning of the game, you can sell them. And then, like I said before, don't hoard your items. It's better to get more units. So just have a little look through, see which ones you think, oh, I don't particularly need this. You know, I could do without that. And just sell things to be able to get this not first, but the first bunch of units, basically. So we need 350. So we're going to try and sell enough to be able to get 350. And bang on, we've got 350. So it cost a couple of items, but it's not a big deal. We'll get lots and lots of items throughout the campaign. So don't worry too much about selling your early items. Okay, we may as well put this mascot on somebody. So we've got morale and movement speed, so we may as well put it on this chasseur. So the French have actually got awful morale, so we might want to put it on one of the royal recruits actually, because they have got terrible morale. Okay, the next thing we really want is an officer for this 2nd brigade. So you get officers from a noble house up here, but obviously this particular settlement hasn't got the noble house. But anytime you see a noble house, just have a look inside and see if there's anything in there that's cheap that you can afford. And I always recommend as well having a spare officer, because certain events require an officer to complete. So you don't really want to be using one of your brigade officers. You want to use a reserve officer for the random encounters. Okay, so we've now got 6 regiments. So we're now basically capable of fighting virtually all of the patrolling armies on the battlefield, on the campaign map, sorry. Now, at day 60, you're going to get a 2-star unit spawn, and he's going to chase you. So you're going to need more than 6 by day 60. But until then, you can just go around searching for patrol armies to kill and searching for encounters to complete to find more armies to destroy and more loot to pick up from these encounters. So you might find that they start running away from you once you start snowballing and getting more troops than they have. So once I unpause, he's actually still coming towards me, but most of the time they would be fleeing at this point. So you want to take as many fights as possible once you start snowballing. So don't be afraid to fight as much as possible. And even if the fight is too much for you to win, like if you bite off more than you can chew, it's not the end of the world. During the actual battle, you can retreat. In fact, I'll quickly show you how to do that. May as well show you. Even though I said I wouldn't be showing any battle stuff, this is actually quite important in terms of how to manage the campaign map as well. So obviously there was a button there to retreat as well, but it's actually better to retreat during the fight than it is by pressing that button. And what you're going to want to do is try and inflict as many casualties at the start, and then if you press this button down here, you can retreat off the battlefield. So you'd basically select everybody, then do a mass retreat. Now you need to have less than 75% morale, so you have to wait until this morale bar drops below 75%. But you can mass retreat once that happens. You don't need to fight to the bitter death if you are losing a fight, or if you have bitten off more than you can chew. You just mass select everybody, hit the retreat button, and you'll be able to escape everybody. Okay, one thing that I haven't mentioned yet is during the battle, the enemy are going to break and obviously start to flee, and you might be tempted to chase them all down to get as many kills as possible. But the way that this game works is the more enemies that stay alive at the end of the battle, the more loot you get, because they're captured enemies and you can ransom them, conscript them, or exchange them. So you don't want to kill as many as you can in the battle, the ones that are fleeing this is. You actually want them to survive so you can get more resources from them. Now, obviously, you can kill them if you want, because then you'll get more veterancy on your units. So it's basically a toss-up between killing them and getting veterancy, or letting them live and flee and getting rewards for it. So one thing about leveling up is as you level up, it will increase your stats. So you see here it says veterancy plus 4.5. We get a plus 1.5 increase for every level. So we've got plus 1.5 on charge, we've got plus 1.5 on melee per level, that is, and also on accuracy. You don't get any on range, you do on morale, and you do on reload, but you don't on your running, and you do on your stamina. So getting higher levels will increase your stats, but the one trade-off is you have to spend these levels to rank up. Now, when you rank up, you lose all of these bonus stats that you gained from this level. So sometimes it's better to keep at a lower rank, like towards the end of the game. If you've only got a few battles left, it might be better to stay at this rank at a high level than it is to rank up and lose all of that veterancy. So I just thought I'd point that out for you. So we're just going to put the rest of these things on. We've got some reload. This is a charging thing which I only really put on cavalry, and we haven't got any cavalry at the moment. We managed to capture a cannon, so we could try to upgrade. Now this one can't go down the cannon path, but these recruits can go down the cannon path. And getting cannons early on is really important. Not important, but helpful. So I do recommend getting cannons if you can. They're not the be-all and end-all, but they will make your life a bit easier. Okay, and then another thing that you can do is raid cities or settlements. Now this is good for a couple of reasons, but it's also bad for a reason. So one reason it's good is you can get items. Another reason it's good is you can get free provisions and thalers. So especially if you're running low on cash and provisions, you're going to want to do this. But a couple of reasons it's bad is it's not an efficient use of your time, because time is valuable in this game, because obviously you want to make the most of your time until the headquarters turns up. And while you're raiding, you can actually alert the HQ, which will reduce the time even further. So raiding can be good, especially right at the beginning of the game to help you start snowballing, but I wouldn't recommend on doing it too often. And the other bad thing about it is if you raid the city entirely, you can't trade there. It gets pillaged basically. So I'll quickly demonstrate. You click this button and then this timer starts, and then as the days pass this ticks down, and then occasionally you get that headquarters notified, which is what decreases the time. So we got some free money and provisions, and we got a couple of items. So we can then go and put these items on. Okay, so that is the raiding. Now you can drill if you want, which increases your veterancy. But to be honest with you, again, just like with the raiding, I don't think it's a very good use of your time. So I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you've got literally nothing else to be doing. So what you're going to want to do is carry on looking for these encounters. Now, unfortunately, the outpost is one of the encounters that uses the captured uniforms and gorgets, and we've sold them. So there's a chance that this might be not a good idea to, or not a great place to go to, because it's basically out of the way. We want to be going towards the road and the centre of the map. This is more like along the edge of the map, so you can end up wasting time doing this. But if it's more off the beaten path, then use forced march. If it's going towards the centre in the direction that you want to be going, use forage so you can get better visibility basically. But we've got a convoy here, so I might just completely ignore this because we want to go towards the centre and close to the road, so we're not wasting too much time. So because we're going towards the centre, we're going to put forage on. We're going to go this way. We're going to ignore this outpost. Make sure once you press forage, you press pause. So we've got a battlefield down here. They're good places to get free regiments and battles as well. These are always risky, so there's a high chance that you will get something, but there's also a chance that you'll lose quite a lot as well. So it's up to you if you want to take the risk. We were lucky there, we actually got some stuff. Now because battlefields can give units, they are actually quite often worth going off the beaten track for. So we're going to come down, check this out. We've got another battlefield over here. So we are going to try. Nice, we were lucky. You don't have to try and do these risk-taking ones if you don't want to take the risk. So unfortunately we've got a event here where we need a light infantry, a light cavalry or a heavy cavalry, so we're not able to do this one, which is unfortunate. But we're going to come down here, but because we're backtracking a bit, we're going to put forced march on. Now you've got to be careful when you're away from settlements like we are here, that you don't run out of provisions, and when using forced march you use extra provisions, so just be super careful that you have got enough provisions. Another thing like here, when you're raiding forts, we haven't actually got... Right, so there's two things that I was going to mention. One is if we need a certain thing, like here we need to garrison reservists, you can leave, take the reservists off your troops, and then we can now garrison them. So that's one thing. The other thing was, some of the options say they take a certain amount of days, and if they take a certain amount of days, for each day it's going to use supplies. So you've got to be very careful if you're out away from towns that you're not eating so much supplies that you can't make it back to a town to resupply, otherwise you'll starve to death. So we've obviously picked up a load of items, so we may as well start putting some on. You're going to want to get rid of these more worn muskets as soon as possible. That's pretty obvious. Okay, we're still doing alright for provisions, so we can still carry on searching around here. So we can carry on searching along the edge of the map, and we've got some slums here. Slums are really good. Obviously you don't know what you're going to get in these events, but some of the slums give you really vital information, like where all the encounters on the maps are, or where all the enemy units are on the map, so they can give you really valuable information. So I highly recommend getting these slum events. So like here we can get every army in the region is revealed for 100 gold. So you can try sabotage and delay the HQ if you want, but intelligence is almost always the better option. So we were quite lucky in this event. Some of the events at the slums are negative, so you never know what you're going to get until you visit them, but this one is a particularly good one. So we're going to do this, and now we can see where all of the encamped units are and where all of the patrols are. So we've got a patrol here, patrol here, patrol here, patrol here. So we now know, and another one here and here as well. We now know exactly where all the enemies are, and we can now start forging a path to do these enemies if we want, or to avoid certain ones. Now, encamped ones are particularly difficult, but you do get doctrines for completing them. But I highly recommend waiting until you've got artillery to do encamped ones, or just ignoring them completely. Doctrines are good, but they're not worth losing your entire army over. So, but we're still just going to carry on getting these encounters in forage mode so we can see more of the map. We've still got plenty of food. So like this one is 4 days waiting. If you have a look at the provisions, when we click this, it will use some of your provisions. Now, the more men you've got in your army, the more provisions it's going to use. So we've captured a couple of really good weapons. So we're going to come in and put them on. And then we've got another battlefield down here, and we need to come and get this encampment for this achievement. The objective, sorry. And we've got plenty of provisions still. So let's carry on down here. We could use force march if we think we're running out of time, but usually have a fair amount of time. So like here, we can get a free infantry unit, and we can fight an army to gain experience as well as get a free infantry unit. So once you've started snowballing, you can start taking these type of options. If you hadn't snowballed to get all them extra troops at the beginning, you wouldn't be able to win this fight. So as soon as you click this, you get the unit immediately. So that will help you to win the battle. So we've now got 7 units. Make sure we equip him. It looks like he's got everything he needs actually. And like I say, because we've snowballed, we're now capable of beating this enemy. Now there's a chance he might have artillery, which is a little bit painful, but you can just eat the losses from the artillery if you have enough men. If you don't have many men, all the losses from the artillery can make a huge impact. Where if you've got loads of troops, a few losses from the artillery isn't going to really affect the battle. It's just going to be a bit of manpower bleed that you have to pay for after the battle. But that's not a big problem. One thing that I could say during the fight itself is you can try and sneak around to the back and take the artillery out, but this doesn't really work if the enemy have got a cavalry advantage. So don't bother trying to sneak out and take out the artillery unless you have a cavalry advantage. So that's basically the main thing that cavalry is used for, is to win the cavalry on cavalry battle and then take out the artillery as well. But it's really not necessary at all to do that. It's either get your own artillery and counter battery fire, or just ignore it entirely and just eat the manpower loss and just win the infantry battle. And then as soon as you won the infantry battle, you've basically won the whole battle, because the artillery quite often just flees. And if it doesn't flee, you just send your general at them, or send your light infantry at them, or just send your line infantry at them. But if all they've got left is artillery, it's not a big deal at all. So one thing I will say to do with the battles, because it's quite important, is if you hold down tab, you can see where you've issued your orders. So if you tell like your infantry line to move to here, hold down tab, you can see where they're going to move. That'll help you to move other units, so you can place everybody in a nice perfect place. And the other things are, you can control click everybody into separate groups. So you can hold control to add and remove people, and then once you've added them, whoever you want to a control group, so quite often I just put all infantry in a control group, you then hold shift and press a number, and then you can see in the top right it shows you that they are now all number 3 or number 2, and then you can set different types of units to different numbers, so you can quickly select all of one, all of the other, that type of thing. You can even put it on your general as well if you really wanted to, so we could have general as number 4, so you can quickly go between them just by pressing the buttons. And the other thing as well, you attach and disattach, don't know what the word would be, your bayonet by clicking this button. If you take the bayonet off, it will increase your accuracy. So I recommend keeping it off at all times, and then when a cavalry unit charges you, or an infantry unit of course, then you can quickly put it back on just as they're charging, and then as soon as the fight's over, take it back off again. So if we have a look here now, the battle's almost finished, and I haven't bothered trying to attack the enemy artillery at all, and all it's done is 167 kills throughout the whole battle. So if we look at some of their other units, they've done basically the same amount of kills. So the artillery really isn't something to worry about. It's going to do basically the same amount of kills as all of the rest of the units. And if we have a look here, the British foot has actually done considerably more. So it's not something that you even need to concern yourself about. Now, if an artillery is doing significant damage, if it's a high caliber artillery, then just move your officer, your general within command radius range, which is this blue circle, and it will make sure that your unit doesn't retreat from the morale shock of being shelled by the artillery. And so, yeah, you might take a few losses, but at least you're not going to retreat. And then when you get to around this stage where most of the enemy units are very weak or close to break-in and they haven't got any cavalry left, I've just finished off the last bunch of the cavalry, you can actually tell your general, if you're confident that you're going to win the battle, you can tell your general to just go and attack him, put the sprint on so they get there quicker, and then I'll just speed it up, and your general will basically survive the first volley from the artillery. You'd be incredibly unlucky if you didn't survive the first volley. So it can happen that a single volley wipes them out, but it's incredibly rare. It's only usually the higher caliber artillery rounds that will actually wipe out the general in one shot. So you saw there, he's just eaten a shot, and it's basically done no damage at all. It killed 5 men, and we quickly go and rout him. So that's a really simple way of dealing with the enemy general. You could even try and take out the last unit on the battlefield, because we know we're going to win. It doesn't matter if we lose the general. You only lose about 25% morale, and we've got 85%, so it's not going to make any difference if we do lose the general. And it'll just save us a few more rounds of ammo and maybe a few lives. So, yeah. It's not exactly necessary to do that, but it's something you can do if you really want to. So as you see, we're able to take out basically any enemy when we've got this amount of regiments. So we're pretty safe to just keep fighting over and over again. We keep earning more and more money. We keep getting more and more rewards. Obviously, you can take whichever one you need the most of at the time. So if you're running out of provisions, you can take this one. But the best one to take is the money one. If you've got a lot of all three, just take the one that gives you money. And then we're just going to carry on the loop of taking battles and equipping all of the items to our characters, and then we've got a lot of money now, so we're actually getting close to being able to buy another unit, open up another brigade, and get some more units. So we may as well start heading over to a town at this point. I'm actually thinking of getting some dragoons with this unit, so I might come down here, get myself a cavalry, and then get some dragoons. Dragoons aren't the best unit, but it's nice to have one. we're going to get ourselves some artillery. We have got an artillery piece here that we can equip. I don't recommend getting artillery until you've got something to equip them with, because the base unit, the base gun that comes with it when you upgrade it is pretty garbage. So I wouldn't recommend getting it until you've actually got something to put on it. But I'm just going to quickly equip all of this stuff. Okay, we've equipped all of them items. So we're now going to start thinking about heading towards the road again. But there's no point in rushing. We may as well carry on doing these. Now this one might actually be a little bit too close. I might end up triggering the battle, but we can always try it if we wanted, and then run away if necessary, if it does trigger the battle. But we're just going to carry on. So you can do these if you want, but wasting days for a bit of experience isn't really the best choice. So this gives you all regiments, but we haven't really got that many regiments, so it's not really a huge amount of experience. So I wouldn't necessarily take it, but because we need it for the objective, I'm going to take it simply for the objective. I'm going to quickly come down and see if we can get this without triggering this army. So here we've got likely chance of facing a weak field army, so we're going to want to take that because we actually want to face the weak field army just so we can keep harvesting and earning more and more rewards. So we're carrying on, taking out each one of these small armies, taking as many armies out, or choosing to fight as many armies as we can from the encounters. We're getting loads of decent stuff, getting loads of money. Howitzers are really good at short range firefights against enemy infantry that are incoming, so if you are a defensive player, you want to sit back and kill oncoming enemies, then howitzers are really good at killing oncoming infantry. If you want to snipe enemy batteries, then obviously you're going to want to put other guns on. But counter battery is not exactly efficient in the latest patches. You're much better off going for howitzers and killing the enemy infantry, to be honest. Okay, so now that we're actually getting some decent stuff, we might want to start keeping some of this stuff now that we've already got enough men to snowball, so you don't necessarily need to keep selling stuff when you're already at the snowballing area. So see here, we can upgrade this guy. Now we wouldn't want to upgrade him to artillery because we haven't got an artillery piece to put in. So if we did want him to be artillery, we're just going to wait until we've got an artillery piece, or we find a settlement that's got a foundry that sells artillery pieces. Obviously, if we didn't want him to be artillery, then we can upgrade him to something else. So I'd probably go for the ones that give the highest accuracy bonus, but you don't necessarily need to. Everyone's got their own play styles, so I won't really discuss too much about unit choices. That's something that you just get a feel of for yourself. Okay, so we're going to see now if we do enrage this guy, which we didn't, so we can just move away from him. So we're going to come up and get this outpost, because it's getting closer to the road and we want to visit the town. So we're probably going to go for the money. It might be a good idea to go for... No, in fact, the money is still the best option. So we're going to carry on going for the money. Unfortunately, we haven't found a town straight away, but there's going to be one either just here or just here. So we'll just carry on doing these events. So pelts are obviously good for selling, but if you need the provisions, then by all means go for the provisions. Be careful when walking along the road that you don't accidentally run into a unit, an encamped unit, because it can happen that they spawn on a road or by so close to the road that you automatically run into them while you're pathfinding along the road. So we're going to see if it happens here, which it didn't. So we're going to visit these slums, and we're going to hope that we get... we didn't quite get the show all encounters, but this isn't too bad. We get some free men. Can't really complain about that. So you can fight the HQ early, but there's absolutely no need to. The only time I'd ever do that is on Act 3. So we haven't found a foundry, unfortunately, so we can't purchase any cannons quite yet. So because we've got a lot of stuff to sell, what I'd be doing now is looking for settlements that have got increased sale prices. Now, we've been unlucky that we haven't got one. So there are minor settlements around that might have one. So we could either just sell now and carry on snowballing, or hoard our money and hope that we run into a place that has increased sale prices. But if we sell now, we might be able to start taking out these encampments, and then we'll really start to snowball. So we've got one more slot, and then we can open up a new brigade. We still haven't got a noble house, which is a bit annoying. So we're going to have a little look to see... Oh, before we do that, just check up here to make sure that they haven't got increased cost for buying recruits, which they haven't. So we're going to carry on buying the cheap units. We could also buy this artillery in here, because it comes with a free gun, but the 3-pounder is not particularly good, so it's probably not worth doing. So we're going to carry on getting these. We need to upgrade this and then plop him in. So we need to remember to put weapons and stuff on the new units. And then we can have a look to see if we want to put any items on. I'm not particularly fond of using melee stuff with infantry, so I'm not even going to bother putting the melee stuff on. I'd rather sell it. And then I could carry on buying these as well, so I think that might be what I do. So let's sell some stuff. Can't remember how much I needed now. So I needed 650. Now I'm going to make sure that I've actually got some captured uniforms. So make sure they're the basic ones and not the good ones. because the objectives only need the basic ones, so you'd be wasting money if you gave them the good ones. So I always recommend just keeping one of each of these for the objectives. The encounters, I should say. So we're going to carry on selling. We need 750, or we could try and get 1,500. So I don't think we're going to be able to afford 1,500, so we're not going to bother trying to get it. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think that's fine. We don't really need any of this stuff. Oh, luckily it tells you when the shop can't afford it. So up here is how much the shop has got. So you can see here how much the current value is. So just go up to how much you can actually get from that shop. But once you've sold at that shop, that's only the town square. We can then click on the other buildings who've got their own separate inventory. So if you need to sell more stuff, just click on some of the other buildings. Okay. Oh, they're only 650, not 750. That's my bad. So we actually probably could. We've just sold that sword as well, which is unfortunate. But I think he comes with a sword, so it's not a big deal. So we just need 650. So let's have a look, see what... Oh, my bad again. Let's click on the other one. It's so close. So we'd have to sell this sword, unfortunately. So we can have a quick look. Let's sell this. Does he come with a sword? He doesn't come with a sword. That's unfortunate. I don't want to sell the sword. Oh, this one needs the sword as well. Yeah, so... Let's sell this worn saber. And then... Oh, I've done it again. Oh dear. How many times can you make the same mistake? And then we can afford another cavalry unit. So we've now got tons and tons of regiments. We can snowball pretty much any army. Another thing that I'll mention in here is this first slot, top left of a brigade. That is where the officer goes on. So if you want your officers to be safe, I recommend putting artillery in the first slot, because they basically never get shot at, so your officers will pretty much never die. Pretty much. Obviously there's going to be some times when you make a mistake and your artillery does get shot at. You can put cavalry in these slots to be able to move your officers around easily. Your officers give a morale bonus to people, so you could use your cavalry as like a morale boost to people, but unfortunately cavalry die really easily, and so it's quite easy to lose your officers when using them like this, so it's a very risky tactic. If you want to put somebody in who isn't so risky but you haven't got artillery, then put the unit in that's got the most men. The more men a unit's got, the less likely it'll be that the officer dies, so that's the safest way to do it. So we're just going to, for ease of play, put all of the cavalry into one unit. The other thing I'll mention as well is the unit, it goes slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4. So this is the final slot of a brigade, not this one. So in brigade 3, this is going to be the one, if it was infantry, this would be the one that's furthest on the right. And then in the first brigade, this would be the one that's furthest on the left when you load into a battle. Obviously, if it's not infantry, then it won't load up on the wings. So the first infantry going from slot 1 to 4 is going to be the first one on the extremities. Okay, so we've now got really powerful army, we can now go and hunt down some of these encampments if we want. Now bear in mind that around day 60 we're going to get a field army come in and attack us, so we might not want to do it around this period of time, just in case we aren't able to recover and fight the field army in time. But we're going to do it anyway. I'm not saying you should do. I'm not recommending to do this because you want to fight the field army first. So here's the field army, I think. No, still a patrol army. We'll see it soon anyway. So 4 days is a lot of waiting time, but you do have quite a lot of time on this difficulty, so... unfortunately, our officer died. These things can happen, and it was a good officer as well. Which is a shame, but you can buy new officers, it's not the end of the world. So we got a new unit from completing this objective. So we're going to go in and see if we can defeat this army. If, like I said earlier on, if you go and take a fight and then you realise, oh dear, I'm not going to be able to win this, and you want to retreat, don't just hit the retreat button here. Load into the battle, do a little bit of fighting, and then mass retreat with everybody once you're below 75% morale. So we quite comfortably took out the encamped army, despite it being the second hardest battle in Act 1 after the HQ battle. And I did not try to attack the artillery at all, and they did do a fairly significant amount of damage, so 450, 276, 450, 500. So they did do a lot of damage because we weren't trying to kill them or do counter battery. But we actually did more damage with our artillery. I was using howitzers, they were just using normal guns. So I did 680 with my 10-pounders, but I actually did over 1,000 with my 6-pounders or whatever they are, the ones that cost 400. So I did more kills with my lower caliber howitzer because it's got much faster reload time. So howitzers are really good, even the cheap ones, at taking out enemy infantry. So I highly recommend getting howitzers early on. And don't even bother trying to kill the enemy cannons unless you've got a huge cavalry advantage, because what you'll find, if you try and take out their cannons early on, their cavalry will countercharge you, but also all of their artillery will target you. So you'll end up losing all of your cavalry, and you'll still fail to take out the artillery anyway. So you may as well just buy some howitzers for yourself and just kill their infantry with it instead, and use the cavalry just to protect your infantry in case any holes appear. Okay, so we've still got plenty of reservists, even though we lost quite a lot in that battle. We're running a bit low on provisions, but it's not massively urgent. We've got loads of ammo as well, but we're going to take this option still because we want the money. This could be a good time to take the veterancy, but we're just going to be greedy on the money. And because we took out an encamped army, we get to pick another doctrine. So we could get this, which gives us more men every day at the cost of a bit of morale. Or we could get this, which, as long as you don't get flanked, then we get less fire damage received. I really like this. You just have to make sure you don't get flanked, which is fairly easy. This is pretty decent for artillery reload speed. But I think we're going to go for the less fire damage received. So we still need officers for all these guys, but we haven't found a settlement that sells them yet, or recruits them. So I'm just going to carry on doing all this off cam. Okay, now with that sorted, we can carry on doing some encampments while we work our way over to this. Like I said, they usually get a field army come in around day 60, but that is on legendary difficulty, so he might come in at a different day, or he might not come in at all. I don't actually know. So we can delay the HQ, which is not a bad thing. May as well do it. Gives us more time to take these fights on if we want and complete all the encounters. So it'd be nice if I could get this slums, so let's have a little look-see what's in this slum, see if it gives us the encounters. Unfortunately we got the bad one, so you do get negative ones, which is just the way it is. You can't always get positive encounters. So we're going to hunt people down. To hunt people down, I would recommend putting Force March on, so you don't need to chase them for longer. And we're just going to keep harvesting as much stuff as we can off these people. Okay, we're going to continue our search for a noble estate, which we found. So we're going to get some officers. We've also found a foundry, so we'll be able to upgrade this guy and give him a cannon. But we haven't exactly got a ton of money, so we might come back to the foundry later on. Or shall we come back to get the officers later on? We'll get the foundry at another time. Let's get these officers. So for now, we could get cheap officers, because it's still early on in the game. They will level up pretty quickly. We could use that for cavalry maybe. Go on, let's do that. And to be honest, we've probably got enough stuff to be able to sell to get 600. So yeah, we can get this bronze gun. The bronze guns are really good. I do recommend going for at least £6 though. I think there's a smaller one, which I wouldn't particularly recommend. But these £12 howitzers are good for infantry killing. You don't even need a £12 howitzer. These £6 howitzers are perfectly fine, and you've got the £10 as well. So any of these howitzers are good at killing infantry. And then if you want counter battery, you can go for these bronze guns and the more expensive guns above. These bronze ones for the opportunity to get counter battery. They are also good against infantry, but howitzers are better. These are just more versatile. So yeah, we're going to get this. Then we're going to upgrade this chap. So we want him in this slot, so he's one of the officers. Oops. And then we don't need this on him anymore. He can't have both of them, so we're going to need to put it on someone else. Right, so I'm going to put the best gun on the highest vet unit, so that's him. We've got some better muskets that we can swap out. Let's pop this and this on. Okay, so we've now got 3 fairly decent artillery. We've got 3 cavalry, and we've got a fair amount of infantry as well, so we're looking really good. These can't level up any further, so they're just going to remain as they are. And then we are going to carry on looking for fights. So there's this guy that's hovering between these two. But we'll probably catch him up here. For now, let's carry on going up to this village, and then we'll see if there's any encounters along the way. Looks like we've got one here. Okay, so we can face a tough field enemy here. Because we're snowballing, we're perfectly capable of taking this on, and we don't want to waste 7 days. So let's take on this tough enemy. We get a free artillery out of it, and he's got a fairly decent gun as well. So we could pop this artillery in. We obviously can't purchase a new upgrade, but I don't think we need all of this cavalry. Let's pop him on here. So, because he's not at full health, we're gonna take him out, put the cannons in here, and we're just gonna play with 2 cavalry for now. And he's only got 7,000 men, we've got 9,000, and we've got fantastic artillery, so this won't be difficult at all. As you can see, he's only got 1 artillery piece to our 4, so easy battle. Okay, so we've easily dispatched of that army, and we're starting to run a little bit low on provisions, so we could see if we can stock up a bit on provisions in this town. I don't think I'm going to need another officer quite yet, although I am trying to build towards opening this up. I only need 900, and I can already sell quite a lot of stuff, but I haven't quite got the money for it yet, so we're just going to get some provisions for now instead, and that'll do. And then we want this encampment and this herd preferably, so let's quickly grab this. We don't really want to waste 4 days, so... Oh, we lost another officer. That's a bad event, that one is, being able to lose an officer for that. It's probably not an event that you want to take very often. So, if you have a spare officer in your recruit pool that's really cheap, like if we had got him, it would have only cost us 58 to do that. So it's always good to have a spare one of these, which I think we're going to do now. We've got infantry accuracy, which is good. We've also got this, which is really good as well, so... I think I am going to take the cover guy. Let's quickly go and see what this herd has got for us. So we're just carrying on. Another officer killed. We've been so unlucky with these events. Oh dear, but like I say, it only cost 58 that time because we bought the cheap officer in reserve. See if there's another cheap officer here. So we've got another one for 65, so let's quickly sell something just so we can buy that cheap officer. Just just in case we get another bad event. So unfortunately this guy's now down here when we want him up here. But that's just how it is. Yeah, he's on his way up, so we'll be able to get him in a second. Okay, so we could get a couple of good horses if we want. We could get the provisions and the pelts. We're going to go for the provisions and pelts. We'll probably get some decent horses in Act 2. He's actually coming towards me, which is amazing. Look how much stronger I am than him. There we go, now he's retreating. So we're going to quickly kill him and get some more loot off him. So yeah, there isn't really much more to say. You just keep rinse and repeating what we've done so far. Try and build as large an army as you can at the beginning. Sell off most of your items so you can buy more and more cheap units, and then just take every single battle that you can from the encounters, and when you're strong enough, kill as many of these encamped armies as you can. Obviously we got a little bit lucky getting the slums that gave us the intel on where the enemy armies are, but even without the intel you'll be able to find the majority of the armies, especially on this slightly easier mode. So yeah, that should be it really. I don't think there's anything else I can cover or that I can think of, to be honest with it. And what I'll do is I'll link my pro tips video, which goes a little bit more in depth into some little tips and tricks that you can do to make your life a bit easier. And if there's any other questions that you have, just give me a shout and I'll try to answer them. Okay, cheers for watching guys, take care, I shall see you soon.